Yoli. What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the WiseTake MLB DFS Wise Stream. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I, of course, am from the WiseTake Nation, which you can find on those social media platforms that sit above or directly at WiseTake.com. If you're looking to take your DFS game to the next level, we are a premium DFS content provider as well as a DFS community designed to help make you a better DFS player. Go check us out. If you're new to the channel, welcome. You came to the right place for some free DFS content. Please hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications bell. Don't miss out on any other free content that we put out Monday through Friday for MLB. We do an NBA show that's behind our paywall at wisetake.com prior to lock, 45 minutes prior to lock. You can check that out if you're interested there in NBA content. But we got some free MLB that we drop Monday through Friday. We cover football, all kinds of good DFS stuff. So you never know what we're going to put out here. So make sure that you have notifications bell turned on so you don't miss out on any of that stuff. So yesterday, I had a lot of A's stacks. A's were my number 2 stack. The Yankees were my number 1, like everyone else's. And, obviously they sucked. But Glass now ended up being the right move. On FanDuel, I ended up overweight on him. I thought I would be somewhere. I had about 40%. I thought I'd be around the field. And I was slightly overweight. I think he came in at like 34%, so that was cool. He went out and did the dirty. And on DraftKings, I think I had like 60%, and I ended up 5% overweight over there too. Didn't do so well on DraftKings. The SP2 thing, I was kind of hoping that the Peralta chalk would fail, and it didn't. He actually just balled out against the Cubs, so that didn't go so hot. But pretty good day on FanDuel. Especially, it was looking, so many times on FanDuel, like I'm in that situation, and it's a very top-heavy contest. So many times I've been in the situation, like 34th in the main donkey, right, and just needing a home run from like a Mike Trout, and haven't been able to get it. And then, of course, yesterday I'm in that position once again, but I don't need Mike Trout. I needed like Suarez. I needed like Murphy. I needed Matt Olson. And instead, Mike Trout hit a home run and kind of knocked me back to like 200 plates. So ultimately, we ended up getting closer. I think we finished somewhere in the top 100 with 2 teams. So getting close, but just kind of need that one little push to get us to first place, to get the 30 grand, 40 grand, whatever it is. And just kind of just slightly missing, just like the luck factor. Baseball does require a lot of luck, a lot of skill to put yourself in that position, but also a lot of luck. But the A's were definitely the top stack of the night. Madison Bumgarner, man, something's wrong. Mad Bum. Something's wrong. Tony A, what's happening? Says, good morning. This is the best pitching I've seen in a long while. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a pretty good pitching slate. Excited to get into it. Mr. Patrick Bush, what's going on, bro? Good, doing well. How are you? Says he tried MLB for the first time last night, and he was as high as 4th place, but ended up profiting just $8 for the first time on DraftKings. Not bad, man. Baseball is a very variant sport. In my opinion, baseball more than any other sport. Well, I guess you could argue football, but really baseball more than any other sport. Having multiple teams is better. There's so much variance you're competing with, and you want to be able to stack to get the full correlation. But if you're wrong on your stack, that team is pretty much done. Inversely, if you're right on the stack, as long as it's not too popular, you could end up finding ways to make some money. And the A's were an example of that last night. A lot of teams in the top. I mean, pretty much every team in the top had the A's somewhere. So I'm finding out last year, I've always played DraftKings more for baseball. I've been playing both, but I've been enjoying FanDuel's product. What I don't like is on DraftKings, I like to do full 5-man stacks. FanDuel, you can do 4, but I think that it kind of opens you up because you end up with like different combinations. I know on FanDuel, one of the better stacks that I've been seeing working is like the 3-3-1. I've been seeing that coming out a lot. And I think that'll happen. I typically like to do 4-4s or on DraftKings 5-3s, things like that, multiple stack correlations. But I typically will do those more as the season progresses. The weather gets a little bit warmer. All these kind of things have an impact on how the ball carries. All these things have an impact on how the stadium plays out. There are some stadiums that dimension-wise are big. Coors Field is an example of that. Now, weather is not so much as the altitude in Coors Field, but there are situations like that in Coors Field. The dimensions are actually huge, right? It's just there's so much elevation over there that the ball just carries. The air is so thin that there's no resistance against the ball, and it just carries out. But a lot of cool stuff with MLB. Requires a lot of skill, no doubt. Let me just click this, get this up out the way here. Requires a lot of skill, no doubt. But also requires some luck, man. Variance is one hell of a thing, man. Mike Trout could be in the best possible matchup, and take it from me, somebody who's had Mike Trout a couple slates already this year where I needed a home run to really put me in first place. And, he wasn't able to come through. Of course, last night he does it, and I think in his last at bat, top of the ninth or top of the eighth, whatever it was. And it kind of punished me a little bit, but, that's just baseball, man. One of these, you just wait for that time for it to roll your way and hope you make enough money to make up for the times it didn't go your way. Tony A says always pitch versus the Cubs right now. They can't hit. Yeah, they're struggling. They're struggling, man. We saw last year they were striking out more than we had been accustomed to with them. We're starting to see that trend continue. Anyway, appreciate you guys. If you could share the show, that goes a long way with us. Really helps us out. Trying to get back to our core, build up the YouTube channel, because that's really when WiseTake was at its best. So trying to do what we do to keep things rolling here. And I appreciate all the support. Let's go ahead and get into today's slate. So it's Tuesday. The good thing about baseball is not a ton changes. You do have some occasional late scratches. I think we had one yesterday. Carlos Rodon got scratched. But for the most part, aside from lineups, which typically come in on time, not a lot of changes. So a lot of this pitching information should be mostly relevant, right? Mostly. Disclose myself. We'll start things off with Mr. Shane Bieber, best pitcher on the slate. Sorry, Bauer. I think Bieber's the best pitcher on the slate. And his numbers would back that up. His 1.63 ERA is great, but his 2.04 xFIP, 2.52 SIERA, 41% K rate, that kind of says more than enough, I think, anyway. Just phenomenal numbers. BABIP was low, but he's just an elite pitcher. Gets a lot of swing and miss stuff. Even his ground ball rates, man, pretty solid, 48% for a pitcher like this. Oftentimes, you'll see a lot of strikeout pitchers like Max Scherzer and some of these guys with really high fly ball rates, but not Biebs. Not Biebs. I'm a believer if you couldn't tell already. Hard contact rate is low. We know that. White Sox Park is a hitter-friendly park. 30th rank park we have for pitchers. So it's a hitter-friendly park. But you do have a team in the White Sox that will strike out. They will. They'll do it. If they're in that situation. Looking at last year's numbers because we have the bigger sample size. The projected lineup we have currently with Eaton, Luis Robert, Abreu, Moncada, Mercedes. This dude's a beast. I'm just going to throw that out there. This guy's been a beast. He didn't really play last year, but he's been awesome this year. But we got Grandal, Nick Williams, who we don't have any stats for last year. Larry Garcia, and then Mendick. We're looking at like a 25% K rate. Certainly enough for Biebs, who's got a 16.8% swinging strike rate, carrying over from last year. He's elite. I think he is the top play on the slate. I think that we have a few different pitchers we can get different with and take some shots with. But I think in cash games, you're just going to plug in Bieber. Maybe you can make an argument for Bauer if you feel better about the park, or whatever the case is. But I just think that Bieber is the number one pitcher. He's elite. Anytime he's on a slate, anytime DeGrom's on a slate, they're most likely going to be in my cash game section of my article, and they're going to be no different today with Biebs, man. I just think he's extremely talented. On a projection level, as you can see here, he projects the best for us as far as the studs go, the spend-up options. Obviously, the cheaper guys, you're going to find some of them project better on a point per dollar level, but overall, when you look at it, when you see a pitcher that's as expensive as these guys, and they're still projecting with pretty solid point per dollar outputs, that's all you really need to see. So yeah, Bieber is the top option. I think Bauer is definitely in play. He did really well against the Rockies in Coors. They did ultimately get to him eventually, but he did really well against them in Coors. Now he's playing them at home in a more pitcher-friendly environment. Now, according to the dimensions themselves, the Dodgers Park, it's not actually as good of a pitcher's park as we always give it credit for, but it's still the Rockies, right? Like the Rockies outside of Coors for a couple years now have really struggled offensively. We've got, looking at with this projected lineup, potentially a 27.6% strikeout rate with the guys they have available. Remember, no more Arenado. That was a guy that they lost. Trevor Story, as good as he is a high strikeout player. McMahon struck out 36% of the time against righties. Hilliard struck out 37.3% of the time. Garrett Hampson struck out 34% of the time. So yeah, definitely plenty of strikeouts to be had here. Are you saving enough to go down from Bieber to Bauer? I don't think so. Personally, I think I still feel a little bit more comfortable with Bieber. I do think that I do respect the White Sox offense a little more right now than I do the Rockies when the Rockies are away from Coors. I'll throw that a little tidbit in there. So there is definitely a case to make, I think, in tournaments for Bauer. You can notice we were talking about the fly ball rates before. You could see Bauer definitely one of those strikeout pitchers with massive fly ball rates, 47.8%. Say what you will, I'm curious to hear what happens with that ball they sent to the lab. Bauer's been accused by several YouTubers and athletic trainer. I think some athletic trainer that tried to dime out Garrett Cole and all these top pitchers that are supposedly using some sort of foreign substance on their fingers. I'm not gonna lie, I got a little pissed that when Bauer, I understand he didn't mean to, but people on his team kind of teased that he was going to the Mets. And apparently it was a mistake. I think he was never really going there. I think he always wanted to go to L.A. He's from California, so it made sense. And I think he wanted to be, I don't think he wanted to be competing with the Cy Young with his teammate, right? He's competing with DeGrom with the Cy Young last year. So he squeaked it out. But I don't think he wanted to be. I think he didn't like the fact that he would have been considered the second best pitcher on the team. I think he at least wanted a shot at being the best. But that's neither here nor there for this particular slate. Just curious to hear what comes back. But again, even if you look at the numbers with the Rockies, the strikeout rates last year were pretty similar. And if we look at the WOBA, 307, 140 at ISO compared to the White Sox, 334, 192. So there's some arguments to be made. I just think Bieber's a higher quality pitcher. Bauer does recognize that with Biebs, and he does have this little friendly competition thing where he's constantly trying to, one him up, show him up, whatever you want to say. But I still think, to me, it's Biebs over Bauer. Giolito, don't love the matchup against the Indians. Not that they're a great team. No more Lindor. And I expect them to strike out a little bit more this year than they have in years past. Previously, they were just a team you didn't really want to attack. And even if you look at their numbers now, Jimenez, 19.6%, J. Ram, 17.5%, Eddie Rosario, 15.3%, even Josh Naylor, 10.8%. They have a couple guys that do strike out a lot. Roberto Perez, 32.6% to righties. Franmil Reyes, 30.4% to righties. They got Ahmed Rosario, 34.1% to righties. So there's still guys that will strike out. And Giolito's got some really unique strikeout stuff, man. He's got a nasty changeup. The issue, of course, is he can be a little wild at times. 7.7% walk rate to righties last year, 10.4% to lefties. The Indians, they were a lot more patient in years past. They're not the most patient team anymore with some of the players that they've swapped out. Jimenez only a 4.7% walk rate, Rosario 1.1%. But J. Ram still got a 12.4, Rosario 9.6, Franmil 9.3, Cesar Hernandez 10.8. So it's one of those things, right? The question is, are you saving enough? Because he has the upside, he's got the ceiling. He doesn't necessarily have a great strikeout matchup, all in all. Are you saving enough to where it's worth taking the shot? And I'm not so sure that I am. Even looking at the projections, like the other guys, Bauer and Bieber project so much better. So I think that's a head scratch, especially when you consider that they are playing in the White Sox park, which is more hitter friendly. Right? These things we can consider. So I think Giolito is definitely a nice tournament option. He'll be low owned. We've seen a lot of situations where Giolito's chalk, and I think that maybe this particular one, we see his ownership kind of stay low a little bit. But I'm just not that interested. I think that I'm too close to Bieber at this point, too close to Bauer. I don't feel great about it. Jameson Taillon, new Yankee edition. I don't think Taillon pitched a ton last year. I think that's why we don't have his stats up here, right? Yeah, he didn't really pitch last year because he was dealing with an injury. He looked really good in his first start. He looked really good. I'll pull up his numbers on FanGraphs so we can have something to reference. I mean, this dude is young, man. We saw some good when he was with the Pirates. We saw some bad when he was with the Pirates. Didn't play here in 2020. 2019, he had a 7.23 K per 9. He had a 4.06 xFIP. Let's see if we can, what else we can find on him here. His Sierra, by the time he left, was 4.44. I'm not totally sold on Taillon. I know he looked really good in that first start. Let me see if I can pull up his little game log here. Now, yeah, okay. So he played Baltimore. He only went 4 innings and 2/3. Gave up 3 hits, had 7 Ks, gave up 2 earned runs. So I guess my confusion is coming from DraftKings pricing, like why they decided to price him at 9.4. It's kind of crazy. It's a different conversation I think on FanDuel where he's 7.5. I think you could um, at least consider him. But 9.4 on DraftKings, I'm kind of confused. He threw 74 pitches. Maybe they allow him to throw 80, 85, but still, it just seems kind of outrageous. And not to mention, this game is in Florida, and that Dunedin, I think it's called, in that very small ballpark. So, I mean, I don't know. This doesn't look like a very promising spot for Tyon. I want to look at his 2019 stats to see where he showed weakness. If we look at 2019. I mean, he was decent as far as contact metrics go. He gave up more hard contact to righties, but he really didn't get beat up as hard as you would think. Toronto can strike out. We've seen them strike out. Now, they've looked a little weaker to lefties. To righties, last year, if we look at this particular lineup, there's really not a lot of strikeouts. I mean, we got Grichuk at 24.4%. The next highest after that is Biggio at 21.8%. A lot of guys here: Simeon, Bichette, Vlad Guerrero, Tellez, Jansen with strikeout rates under 20%. So I'm just not that interested. And I think Toronto could definitely be considered, especially after seeing Cole yesterday. You're getting a real change of pace here. And you can see, even with the matchup, Toronto had a 186 ISO last year. It's not so, not so great. You can see him popping on the orange there. Green is good. Orange is close to red. Red is like, damn. So, I'm not a fan of Tyon in this particular spot. I think that the pricing on DraftKings is kind of crazy. Again, it kind of threw me for a loop. I was like, he must have done really well in that last start. And then I was like, I don't think he did, man. But, I'm on the Toronto side, no doubt, of that one. Dylan Bundy. Mr. Dylan Bundy revitalized his career a little bit going to the Angels in a much better park. I mean, he's a massive fly ball guy normally. And so putting him from a very small park in Baltimore out to LA is probably going to be good for his career. And it has been so far. He gets an even better park today in Kansas City, rated as the #1 pitching park in the game due to the dimensions. Kansas City is a team that will strike out. Bundy's got some good strikeout stuff, 27%. He's another one that could struggle with his command from time to time. Let me pull him up for a more in-depth view. 13% swinging strike rate. The Royals are very inconsistent, right? You got Merrifield at 14%, Carlos Santana, who they acquired in the offseason, 17.9%. Benintendi last year had a 30.8% strikeout rate. Hunter Dozier, 24.8%. So their strikeouts are like mediocre, right? They're just not a very good offense. Bundy is somebody who can struggle with lefties, and they're going to throw a few lefties out there. Isbell, Nicky Lopez, Benintendi, Santana. But outside of Benintendi and Santana, the other ones just aren't that good. So I think Bundy's an interesting option today when you consider the park and everything. And he's somebody that on DraftKings, you are saving a little bit of money. I guess you could argue on FanDuel, you're still saving a little bit of money. Ceiling is a concern. Not that Bundy doesn't have a ceiling at all, but he doesn't hit that ceiling as often. Now, he's coming off he's had 2 decent starts, right? One against the White Sox. He did give up a home run and 3 earned runs. Interestingly enough, Bundy's given up 3 home runs already. And that's something that he's kind of known for, giving up home runs. Now, this big park should help, but that's something we want to keep in mind going forward. As good as he's been, he is still home run prone. Now, the Royals are a team that you're not really like, they just don't seem like a team that's going to hit 1 million home runs, right? Especially not in this park. So these are factors to consider. I still don't think there's enough here for me to want to really bounce off of, Bieber or Bauer on FanDuel. But I do think that he's fine. Like if somebody came to me and said, "Yo, I'm gonna take some shots and low own Bundy today," I wouldn't really argue much. I'd just say consider the ceiling and good luck. That's basically it. Because again, the matchup is fine. The Kansas City Royals, the park is good, right? And even with the runs, Houston's a team that's very tough to strike out. He gave up 2 home runs in 6 innings, but he struck out 10 guys, and he threw 102 pitches, so he's fully stretched out. 1 for 25. So those are some of the factors that you have to consider when looking to roster Bundy. But I have no issues with it. Mr. Steven Strasburg. I think Strasburg, was dealing with an injury last season. Don't think. Damn, I can't talk this morning, man. Don't think we saw a ton of him last year. Yeah, very little. 11 plate appearances to lefties, 13 to righties. So we're gonna throw those numbers out the window a little bit. I'll take a look at 2019. In 2019, he was on, man. 3.01 xFIP, 30.2% K rate, 13.6% strike rate, and a 51.4% ground ball rate. Strasburg's good, man. We know he's good. Issue I have here: Cardinals are a team that historically don't strike out a ton, right? Now last season, some of these guys did strike out more than usual. Matt Carpenter 29.6, Paul DeJong 28, Carlson 28.8. So this is an example of someone who's got the ceiling, who's got the upside, right? As some of those top guys. And on DraftKings, he's only 8,400. Why is he 8,400? I'm not really sure. He looked pretty good against Atlanta. 6 innings. He did throw 85 pitches, so you would think he's good for 90 or so. Only gave up 1 hit to the Braves, a good offense, 2 walks, 8 Ks. So, yeah, and he's pitching in St. Louis, which is a pretty good pitching park, especially when it's not like crazy hot and humid. And not to mention the Cardinals haven't looked great offensively. I think that on FanDuel, he's a little too close to the Bieber Bauer deal that we talked about. But on DraftKings, I'm having a hard time understanding why his price is so low. And to be honest, I'm probably going to raise his projection a little bit for this particular spot. I don't think he's that far separated from those top guys where the price should do that. I mean, point per dollar wise, matter of fact, I'm going to look into this now and try to see why we don't have him projected better and make any manual adjustments that I may have to make. I don't see any pitching limitation or anything like that tells me that he should be projected this low. Do a little bit of that right quick. You'll see that update come through in a minute. But yeah, it's only a second start. Again, he didn't pitch last year a ton, but he looked pretty good in the first, and that was against a good Braves team. Again, with the Cardinals, from time to time, they could be a little stubborn with strikeouts. But last year, they had an ISO of 137, man. They really struggled. And this game is in St. Louis, which grades out as a pretty pitcher-friendly park. I really don't understand. I think on FanDuel, like I said, I don't know if he's cheap enough. Like for another $600, I can get to Bauer. For another $800, I can get to Bieber. I'm gonna find a way to make that work. But on DraftKings, 8,400. I mean, even as an SP1 or SP2, whatever, you're getting SP1 talent at the price of an SP2. That looks pretty juicy to me. I don't know. You tell me. I think I'm with it though on DraftKings. Meanwhile, we got Jack Flaherty, who I think is pretty good. I think he's got good stuff. He's been inconsistent, though. He has. He's been very inconsistent. Last year, 4.91 ERA is ugly. Now his 3.42 xFIP, 3.89 Sierra tells us a different story. 28.8% K rate. I think he's a good pitcher. I don't love picking on the Nationals, though. Truth be told, I really don't. Flaherty had a 14% swinging strike rate last year. Pretty solid. Now, he has a tendency to give up hard contact from time to time. That's something to consider. Depending on the Nationals lineup we see, could really determine the value we have in Flaherty. Robles, if he leads off 30.4% K rate, I'm good with that. Right. But then you got Trey Turner, 14.5%. Juan Soto, 14.3%. Josh Bell did strike out more last year. Kyle Schwarber is going to increase their strikeouts, also going to increase their upside and power, but also will increase their strikeouts. Josh Harrison, 13.5%. Some of these guys, Juan Soto had a 25. Let's see if this is correct here. Looks like a 25.7% walk rate for Mr. Juan Soto. And that is something that Biebs has struggled with a little bit, the walks. I'm sorry, Biebs. Flaherty has struggled a bit with the walks, but he's really walked more righties. 7.6 to lefties isn't great, but 11% to righties is not good at all. So kind of interesting. I think Flaherty's in play. I mean, I did throw Gant against him yesterday. Gant was looking all right until there was a certain inning. One of the innings kind of fell apart a little bit, but I just don't love attacking him. I think that Flaherty be low owned. I think he was somewhat popular the first go around. How did he do in that first start? I forget. It's just hard for me to click Flaherty when Strasburg's only a couple $100 more. Yeah, okay. Getting that first start against Cincinnati did not do well. Gave up 6 runs, 2 homers. That was in Great American Small Park. When he pitched against Miami, in Miami, he looked more like the regular Biebs, right? 26.5 DraftKings points, 6 innings, 6 Ks, 4 walks. Still not loving what I'm seeing in strikeouts, and the Nationals aren't really going to help that out. It's just hard for me to argue. On FanDuel, 8,200, okay, we're saving a lot of money. So that is definitely something to consider. On DraftKings at 81, I got Strasburg at 84. You know what I mean? Hyunjin Ryu. What are we going to do with Ryu? Are the Yankees going to be low owned today? The Yankees are still in this park. Yankees are a team that have always kind of played better at home for whatever reason. But they're going up against Ryu, pretty good pitcher. But a lefty. Yankees have had success against lefties. Not as much last year as they did the year before, but they still have like Judge, 400 ISO, Stanton, 348 ISO, Gleyber Torres, 205, Gary Sanchez, 219, assuming we see Sanchez, which I think we will. Ryu's a pretty good pitcher, though. Ryu's a pretty good pitcher. Let me see if there's any batting average, if there's any BVIP, right? For these guys. Let me just go through here. I must have passed the game. All right. I'm in dirty territory now. We got some. Gary Sanchez, 2 for 4 with 2 homers. Even Jay Bruce is 4 for 12 with 2 homers. Aaron Judge, 3 for 7 with a homer. There's definitely some BVIP. I'm just curious on the Yankees ownership. I don't think I want to pick on the Yankees with a lefty. There's some guys that strike out a lot. Stanton, Judge, Gary Sanchez, Frazier, Odor, yeah. But then there's guys like Gleyber, 17.4%, LeMahieu, 3.9% against lefties last year, Hicks, 11.5%, Urshela, 14%. So I just don't know if it's worth it to take a shot on Ryu, whose numbers, by the way, I'm not even showing it to you, are solid. I think he's a good pitcher, legitimately. Last year had some really good numbers, and I think he's priced fair. But again, this is like a field that we're kind of comparing somewhat to Coors Field, right? It's going to be always warm, humid. It's a smaller dimension park. So remember, this park rank 28 doesn't even factor in the weather. It's just factoring in the dimensions of the park. So it's already a small park. Then you throw in the heat and humidity in Florida. You would think it's a good spot for the Yankees. So I think I'm more interested in attacking Ryu, especially if we think that people that got burned yesterday trying to take him against Robbie Ray are going to back off. Now, I think Ryu's a better pitcher overall, better ground ball rates. Look at his hard contact rate last year, 24.3%. He's a good pitcher. But this is the Yankees offense, 341 WOBA, but 200 ISO, one of the top on a slate. So I think for this one, it really comes down to ownership. Which way is ownership going? I don't think there's enough for me to really want to pitch Ryu. Yesterday on the NBA show, Paulie D had asked me if I was interested in playing Robbie Ray, because I had so many Yankee stacks that I want Robbie Ray, and my answer was no. And my issue with that was that there were too many pitchers. There was too big of a slate for me to have to select one spot and think it had to go one way or another. And what ended up happening was a median outcome. Robbie Ray really wasn't that great from a fantasy output, but he was good enough to shut down the Yankee offense for the most part, except for Higoshawa, who's I can't say his name, but he beasted. So yeah, I'm curious to see what the Yankee ownership looks like today against Ryu. Very curious. But I mean, if we're going to get the Yankees low owned, I think we got to try. Danny Duffy going up against the Angels. Again, he has the good part going for him. Duffy is a big fly ball guy, major fly ball guy. He looked really good in his first start. Let me see the Duff stuff. He looked really good in his first start. He played Cleveland. They're not as good. 5 Ks through 6 innings. They could be tough to strike out. 6 fly balls, so he's still on par with the fly ball when we compare that to 2 ground balls. The Angels. He is playing a decent offense, right? He's playing a decent offense. It's a little scary. Let's pull up some of these Angels metrics and see how they match up. Again, good park. Last year, Duffy's numbers weren't great. You could see a 4.94 xFIP, 4.62 Sierra. Strikeout rate was down from what we've seen in years past. So David Fletcher, 6.8%. Ohtani and Trout did strike out a lot against lefties last year. 29.4, 27.9. Pujols, 17.5. Upton, 32.3. Upton's really streaky. You want to pay attention to that. He also had a 323 ISO to lefties last year. Iglesias doesn't exactly strike fear into anyone, but he does have a 6.1% strikeout rate, and strikeouts are king. Suzuki, 207 ISO, 409 WOBA, 8.6% strikeout rate. I don't know. I think we could do better. Again, on DraftKings, he's still too close to Strasburg, man. $500, I can get Strasburg as my SP2. I'm going there. On FanDuel, I've got concerned over the strikeout metrics. I actually think we can consider some of the Angels against him, to be honest with you. It's just the park that kind of always pushes you back. Now, do we have any significant weather changes in that park? Is it for any reason warm and humid? Probably not. I don't think we're at that season yet. For Kansas City, 56 degrees, absolutely not. It's fucking cold as balls. No, well, not literally. I mean, I'm from the Northeast, so that's not cold. I know that, but nothing here that's particularly great. But we do have a fly ball pitcher going up against Mike Trout. It's a lefty-lefty matchup for Ohtani, but he's obviously still good. Do we have any? I'm sure we got some sample size here to look at. See if I can find Danny Duffy. He's been in the American League for quite some time. I'm sure he's had some run-ins with these guys before. Justin Upton, 8 for 19 with 3 homers. Mike Trout, 9 for 20 with a homer. Even Iglesias is 11 for 19 against this dude with a homer, a triple, a double. Damn. So we got some decent numbers here. I think the Angels we can add to the list. Probably be low owned because of the park. It's just not really exciting to attack a game at Kansas City all the time. But we did see earlier this season, granted, they had winds blowing out. But first leg of the season, we nailed that one, right? We game stacked that game in Kansas City. It went nuts. But we had like massive winds blowing out that day. A little bit of a different situation. But so far, I found 2 offenses I'm interested in. At least semi-interested in. Kyle Hendricks going up against Milwaukee again. Hendricks is a pretty good pitcher. I don't got too much to say. Ground ball rates are solid. Hard contact rates are solid. Strikeout rate is what it is. Like, we've seen him show up in the right matchup. And Milwaukee could strike out with the best of them, man. Milwaukee could strike out with the best of them. No doubt. This is a small park. We want to keep that in mind. Miller Park, as you can see, one of the better... well, it's showing, one of the better hitting parks out there. 21st, that's for pitchers. But if we look at the numbers from last season with Milwaukee, man, 28.8% strikeout rate, just ridiculously bad. Now, one thing that worries me, it didn't really matter for Peralta last night, but one thing that typically worries me is, a pitcher seeing the same team back to back or like so close together. His last start was against the Brewers. He only threw 85 pitches. So they've been working him up. He threw 63 in his first outing against the Pirates, 85 this time around. Still went for 22.5 DraftKings points, 6 innings, no earned runs, 6 Ks, 1 walk, 4 hits. I mean, I don't see why not, right? 7-7 on DraftKings, that seems like a pretty good price. 8-1 on FanDuel seems fine. I like the fact that he's went up by like 20 pitches from his first start to his second, so that tells me that maybe today they're willing to let him go 100, right? If we're going to jump like that from 63 to 85, maybe they'll let him go 100. Now, in the first game, he did kind of get roughed up a little bit. Gave up a home run, 3 earned runs to Pittsburgh, right? Something to consider. But I think Hendricks is definitely in play on both sides. I do. There's just some extra risk with the park being small. Brandon Woodruff, man, that dude is awesome. And I know we saw Tony A in the chat talking about the Cubs, and I mean, he's right. They don't look good right now. And they're striking out a lot. And last year they struck out a lot too, 25.7% K rate. I think Woodruff is nasty. I think he's real good. 7,500 on DraftKings. I don't understand that. That's confusing to me. I think on DraftKings, man, I think you have some ceiling. Like, if you didn't want to pay up for Bieber or Bauer or Giolito, any of these guys, you have a case with Strasburg and Woodruff to be able to load up on bats. We don't have cores, but we do have some, we have Yankees, we have different players like that. Woodruff against the Cubs, 7 innings, only threw 74 pitches. That was it. Now, that's a concern. Maybe that's why his price is low. He threw 78 in the first game, 74 in the second. 74 pitches through 7 innings. He could have obviously went a lot more. Didn't give up any earned runs, only gave up 1 hit, no walks, 8 Ks. So that's weird to me. Is there something they know about him? Are they easing him in for a reason? Because they're being really, really tender with him, right? Really, really tender. Is there something we don't know? On FanDuel at 8-8, I'm a little concerned about the quality start. Like, he did get it against the Cubs, but if they're on some kind of limitation of 75 pitches, that worries me. On DraftKings, I'm willing to roll the dice a little bit more simply because I think he's really good, and I think he could rack up enough strikeouts in that a lot of time. But again, he did just see these Cubs off. Literally the same matchup that we just saw the last time these two guys pitched. So there are some concerns there, but I think 7,500 for Woodruff is too cheap generally. I don't like the fact that he threw 78 in the first game and only 74 in the second. They're not really showing us that increase. So why? Were they going to pull him after 7 regardless because they want their setup man and closer to go in there? I don't know. But I'm a little concerned about that aspect. It worked out for him. He went for 31. 74 pitches, he went for 31 DraftKings points, which is massive. But a decision that had to be made nonetheless. Yarbrough against the Rangers. Wow, this game's in Tampa too. Rangers, we know, not a very good offense. Last now just completely just destroyed them yesterday. He's at home in a really good pitcher-friendly park. Mr. Yarbrough. And he's facing a Rangers team where, most of their best hitters are left-handed. Now, Kenner Falafa's having a good season so far, but David Dahl is a lefty. Horrible numbers against lefties last year. 26.7% K rate. Joey Gallo, 43.6% K rate to lefties. Nate Lau, only 19 plate appearances, but 73% to lefties. White, 36. Tavares, 31. There's plenty of strikeouts to be had here. Now, interestingly enough, you will see with Yarbrough, only had an 18% strikeout rate or so. His swinging strike rate was 11.6, which indicates that maybe he could have had more room for more growth for strikeouts. His xFIP and SIERA were a little higher than his ERA. It's a little concerning. Not going to lie, a little concerning. But the matchup is fine. The park is good. The price is good. I don't think on FanDuel at 6,200. I don't know. I feel like that might be a little trappy. I don't know why. I just got this feeling that, man, that's a little too good to be true to, well, this guy's this cheap and he has a phenomenal matchup. Let me take some shots. But then again, if you're willing to pay 7.4 on DraftKings, maybe we should consider that. It is the Rangers. He's coming off of a terrible start against Boston. He gave up a home run, 6 earned runs against Boston, but he did pretty well against Miami, right for his price. The quality start thing you always have to be nervous about when it comes to Tampa, right? They trust their bullpen. That's something that we're comfortable with. I mean, for a long time, he had an opener, or he was, coming before him. But the matchup is fine. The park is good. I think he's definitely in play. I just worry about ceiling. On FanDuel, ceiling matters. So on FanDuel, I'm looking for that ceiling. I don't think he has the ceiling. I think on DraftKings as an SP2, 7,400, I think we can make that work with the matchup in the park. But it's more of a DraftKings thing for me, and we're just really playing off of the park and the opponent. That's really it. On FanDuel, even if he does well, is he going to do well enough for me to help make the difference up of a Bieber, of these other top elite options? That's the question. Odorizzi against Detroit. Detroit lit up Greinke last night. That was pretty interesting, right? We talked about that. I wasn't interested in Greinke at all. Odorizzi had a 6.59 ERA, but his 4.71 xFIP and 4.5 SIERA still aren't good, but obviously a lot better than his ERA indicated. Odorizzi's always kind of been reverse splits, so if you're interested in trying with Detroit again, just keep that in mind. I think he's an interesting SP2 on DraftKings. I'm not really interested in FanDuel. Let's see how he's done so far. I think he's had a pretty good game his first start, right? Oh, he hasn't played yet? Okay, he hasn't played yet. He was in the alternates. So his season was delayed due to conditioning. That makes me feel like maybe he's not ready to go a ton. Odorizzi's a big fly ball guy, historically, right? Historically, he's been a big fly ball guy. And again, more on the reverse split side. If you're looking to pick on him, I don't want to say you're not ignoring the lefties, but you will prioritize some of these righties. Wilson Ramos has gotten off to a really good start. You got Scope, but they have a lot of lefties here, man. A lot of switch hitters on the Tigers. Something to keep in mind. Odorizzi's got some strikeout stuff. He didn't show it a ton last year, but he didn't pitch a whole ton last year. 2019, he had a 27% K rate in 2019 with a 12.8% swinging strike rate. So that's the upside he's capable of. So we don't want to just scoff at what he did last year. He didn't play much last year. He got hurt. In 2019, he had a really good year for him. He had a really good year. And that's why he was one of the free agents people even talked about. A few years ago, he would have been Odorizzi. People were like, what the fuck? Who gives a fuck? But he did do really well for the Twins 2 years ago. Again, last year got hurt, didn't play a ton. Playing the Tigers. Luis Castillo. Damn, 7-1. 7-1 against the Giants, a team that's not very good, especially against righties. 58% ground ball rate, one of the best ground ball rates on the slate. Let's delve into this a little bit. Last year, Luis Castillo, you can see 3.2 on ERA, 2.82 xFIP, 3.35 Sierra, had a 30% K rate, 15.3% swing and strike rate. This price is just a little too low. The Giants are a team that don't strike out a ton, man. You got La Stella, 5.9%. You got Dickerson, 15.8%. Bell, 17.7%. Longo, 19.3%. They don't strike out a ton. So I guess that's why I guess that's the path that doesn't go well. But he's still too good of a pitcher. I think he did really shitty in that first game. I know that. Right? He was chalk, I think, that first day. And against the Cardinals, I think always got lit up. Bounced back pretty good against the Pirates. Still at home in that small park. 7 innings, 4 hits, 5 Ks, 9 ground balls to 5 fly balls. Even in that game, he got lit up against St. Louis. 11 ground balls to 4 fly balls. 73 pitches and 81 pitches, so he's gradually working up. I mean, yeah, as an SP2 on DraftKings, I don't see why not. Like I said, on DraftKings, it seems like there's some paths that you can take, right? I still want to find ways to get as much Bieber, Bauer as I can, but there's paths, man. There's some cheap guys we can consider here. Strasburg, Luis Castillo, Woodruff, Hendricks. There's some guys that we can consider. 84 on FanDuel is not bad, but strikeouts are king here, and they're king on DraftKings too. But sometimes if you avoid the pitchers that do get hit around a little bit, even if they don't give up runs, if they get hit around a little bit, you get penalized for that on DraftKings, right? Walks, hits, all that stuff. So I don't know. I feel like they have more weight. When strikeouts aren't the main enticing part of the matchup, they have more weight. Castillo's got the number 4 park in the game as far as dimension goes. We have winds blowing out, but from what I understand, from what Kevin Roth always says, the DFS meteorologist, this park was kind of designed to negate those winds. So yeah, Castillo on. I mean, we'll see what his ownership looks like. I'm assuming he's going to be popular. Last time he was chalk, he got lit the fuck up. So we want to keep that in mind, but. Castillo at 7-1 on DraftKings is just way too cheap. I mean, to be honest, 8-4 on FanDuel is too cheap. We just have so many good pitchers. But yeah, I think 7-1 on DraftKings is just a little too cheap for my man Castillo. I do like that. Pablo against the Braves. Braves are a tough offense, man. They're a really tough offense. Pablo had some really good numbers last year. As you can see, 3.73 xFIP. Sierra was 3.98, still solid. K rate was good, had a 12.6% swing and strike rate, had really good ground ball numbers. And these Braves, they can strike out. The problem is you're sacrificing. It's a trade-off. They strike out a lot, but they also have, you can see, the highest WOBA on the slate at 355. They were a really good offense last year. And, I mean, you look at these ISOs, man. Acuna, 323 to righties. Albies, 173, and he's one of the weaker ones. Freeman, 339. Ozuna, 238. Darno, 261. Swanson, 236. They're a good team, man. They're a good offense. I think that the price is still too low for Pablo. I would prefer it if he was at home pitching in the indoors, assuming because Miami always closes that roof anyway. Let's see what he did. I feel like they didn't let him go as long as he could have, right? He got pulled, I think, kind of early. So, yeah, against Tampa Bay, 5 innings, 4 Ks. They pulled him at 77 pitches. He was looking really good. The good news is he did pitch against St. Louis, and he went 6 2/3, and they let him go 99 pitches. So apparently he seems to be a little more stretched out. 9 ground balls to 5 fly balls, 6 ground balls to 4 fly balls. That stuff looks good. He looks good to me. Yeah, something like Tony A pointed out, man. There's a lot of pretty good pitchers on the slate. And on DraftKings, on FanDuel, I don't know. I'm still feeling more comfortable with the guys up top, but I'm realizing that there's more options that we have to consider because even Bieber, man, he's been good, but he hasn't broke 50. And some of these guys have put up just as good a scores as he has at significantly lower prices. So I think it's interesting. I don't think we're just locked in. Like yesterday, 40% glass now. I don't see that happening today. I still think Bieber, I'm going to have one of the highest in my exposures, but maybe it's 20% because I want to leave room to take some shots on these cheaper guys and load up on some bats. And Pablo's one of those guys. If they're going to let him throw 100 pitches, the quality starts back on the table. Now, again, it's risk, heavy risk. Anytime you're playing a pitcher against Atlanta, there's risk involved. And Pablo is not an elite strikeout pitcher. So we want to keep that in mind. But he's in play for the price. Kevin Gausman, He's another one that kind of left Baltimore and seemed to have revitalized his career. It's tough to pitch in Baltimore, man. Organizationally, it could be tough. And more importantly, just the park, man, it's so small. Last year, Gausman had a 32.2% K rate, 15.2% swing and strike rate, xFIP 3.06, Sierra 3.24. He was really good last year, and he's getting to pitch in this park. Now, he gives up a lot of hard contact, but this park certainly helps negate that. FanDuel at 8,700, I don't think I'm really interested. DraftKings at 68, I think I am interested. Now, the problem is the Reds' offense is good. Now, this is a big park downgrade for them. They normally play in Great American Small Park. Now they're playing in San Francisco. But there's some strikeouts to be had, right? Castellanos 32% last year. Suarez 30.3% last year against righties. So Gausman's another one, man. You can throw into the mix. DraftKings, the exposures for me are going to be all over the place. But there's going to be a lot of cheap pitchers I work in here. I'm not just going to be locked in to Bieber and Bauer. Again, you need two pitchers on every team, so you have more room to raise your exposures. But it seems like a fun day to kind of experiment with some of these cheaper combinations. Again, especially with the weak pricing on DraftKings with Strasburg and some of these guys we talked about. I mean, how is Strasburg 8,400 and Jameson Taillon's 9,400 and he's playing in that small ass park in Florida? That shit doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, Gausman's definitely on the table. He's definitely in play. The issue I'm having more or less is the offenses that I like. We've talked about a couple, right? The Yankees maybe, the Angels maybe. But you're looking at all these pitchers, man. It's tough. You're going to have to play a team that maybe you don't feel that great about. Now, we have more teams coming up, and expect these teams to be the higher-owned offenses. After we get through Max Fried, 2.25 ERA. I was never really a big Max Fried dude. I always kind of felt like I think he's decent. I just never really, I don't know. I think he's decent. I just never thought he was as good, right? So this is a tough spot for him. Miami's actually pretty good against lefties last year. Rojas, 425 ISO. Aguilar, 228 ISO. Garrett Cooper, 429. Duvall, 313. This is the team that was pretty good against lefties and didn't strike out as much. I think Fried is a pretty good pitcher, but I don't think he's elite. Now, his hard contact metrics were awesome last year. His fly ball rate, all that stuff were solid, right? 53% ground ball rate, solid. Miami could be kind of interesting today, though. Let's see how Fried is done. I could see Fried being popular because it's Miami, but I really don't like to pick on Miami with mediocre lefties, right? You got to be an elite lefty for me to really want to take that shot, like a Blake Snell type. So Fried did okay against Philly, who's a team that's really good against lefties. Gave up 2 earned runs through 5 innings, 8 Ks, man. That was impressive against Philly. They're a good team against lefties. However, against Washington, only went 2 innings, gave up 5 earned runs and a homer. I think Miami's offense could be interesting here, especially if people do flock to Fried. 6,500 for Fried is a really good price, especially against a Miami offense that, people perceive as bad, even though they made the playoffs last year. But according to the numbers, Miami was pretty good against lefties with this projected lineup. So I think I lean more towards the Miami offense side. And I know they'll be crazy. Nobody ever fucking stacks Miami, right? I'm not that into Fried, but I think Fried could be popular. I wouldn't be surprised if Fried was a popular cash game SP2 for the price. I don't think we have to go there. We have too many good options for me to consider Max Fried. But I can see it because of the price. And Miami's currently implied for 3.3 runs. I could just see it. Right? Mr. Matt Boyd against Houston. Houston's been kind of atrocious this year. Matt Boyd, I think he did the ultimate troll job to me the other day. I played the Twins against him, and he trolled me pretty heavy. Was old school Matt Boyd. Yeah, went for 21. I mean, he's looked pretty good overall. Against Cleveland in the first game, he struck out only 2, but he did go 5.2 innings and didn't give up any earned runs. Against the Twins, man, 8 Ks in 7 innings made him look bad. Give up 3 earned runs ultimately, but made him look bad. Now, Houston hasn't looked great. I mean, they haven't looked nearly as good since the whole cheating thing stopped. I'm not trying to clown on them or say they're not a good team, but they have not been as good. That's the bottom line. However, they don't really strike out much still, and they didn't last year, especially against lefties. Altuve 16.2%, Brantley 16.9%, Bregman 10.7%, Gurriel 7.1%. The thing about Matt Boyd is he gives up a lot of fly balls, right? And even his hard contact metrics, like this hard contact number you're seeing is an overall number. To break it down for you, 25.9% to lefties, 36% to righties. He does give up a lot of hard contact to righties. And Houston they put a lot of balls in play. So I do like the Houston offense against Boyd. This isn't about me hating Boyd. I don't hate Boyd. I promise you I don't hate Boyd. This is about the particular matchup. We have a pitcher who in the past has relied a little bit more on strikeouts, and last year struggled for strikeouts. This year the strikeouts haven't looked so great either, right? Minnesota's a team that strikes out a lot against lefties, and he got 8, but it took him 7 innings, so it's not like some elite thing. And we're talking about someone who's going to see a lot of righties, who gives up a lot of fly balls, hard contact, all that good shit. So I like the Houston offense for sure. Antonio Senzatella against, the Dodgers should be pretty chalky today. This dude trolled everybody in Coors, didn't he? Did Senzatella troll everybody in Coors the other day? Antonio. Let's see. No, he got his ass beat. 700 runs. Dodgers put up 700 runs. No homers, but 700 runs. He trolled. Okay, Arizona is where he pitched well. He went 8 innings. Only had 3 Ks because that's his deal. Went for 24 DraftKings points at 6,400. I don't care. It's the Dodgers, right? Like, the park isn't as good as Coors, obviously, but the Dodgers' best numbers on the slate overall, 350 WOBA, 227 ISO last year, 20% K rate. Dodgers should be pretty popular. I think that's where we'll see a lot of the concentrated ownership go to, especially being that they did beat him up in his first start of the year. Yeah, I'm just going to end it there. If they're too popular, maybe we can look elsewhere. He does have troll tendencies, and this game is not in Coors. But yeah, Dodgers look pretty good. 13.5% K rate. Kyle Gibson, last one we'll talk about. So he got rocked. We were right on picking on him the first game. We were dead wrong picking on him the second game. He had a big bounce back game. Cheapest pitcher on DraftKings against Toronto. Struck out 8 across 6 innings, man. And 82 pitches, too. He could have gone longer. He just did the thug nasty to him. He's playing a Tampa Bay Rays team that strikes out a lot, but it's pretty good, right? You're talking about a team that went to the World Series last year. Still a lot of strikeouts for these Rays. A lot of strikeouts, but a lot of power too. This projected lineup that we have against righties, 204 ISO. A lot of power. 28.3% K rate. What's going to win out? We've seen literally 2 different versions of Kyle Gibson. Kyle Gibson does give up hard contact. Kyle Gibson can strike dudes out. Which Kyle Gibson are we going to see? That I don't know. As far as splits go, last year he was a little worse to lefties with the... he was significantly worse to lefties when you factor in the strikeout rate. 24.5% strikeout rate to righties. That's probably really where things went wrong with attacking him at Toronto. Toronto was pretty right-handed heavy. So we probably should have weighted that a little bit more. These Rays are loaded with lefties. Tsugo, Meadows, Brandon Lau, Wendell, Phillips, if he gets a chance to play. And then the righties, you got Randy Rosarena, Yadi Diaz. I think I lean towards the Rays bats in this one. But it is a really good park for pitching. And Gibson does have that strikeout stuff. And we know that this team does strike out a lot. So a lot of pitching options, man. Finding the stacks you like, it seems like today is going to be the more tricky part of all this. Right? That's what it seems like. Craig, what's going on, man? He says my buddies dragged me into these baseball streets. Yeah, man. Always good to see Tony A in there, man. Always good to see Tony A in there talking about, talking at Slate and everything like that. Kevin McCann, Odorizzi versus Detroit. Detroit hitters are 25 for 110, only 1 home run given up. Yeah, looking at some, is that BVP Daddy looking at, Kevin? Definitely something to consider, right? The question is Odorizzi in the right form? He didn't play last year, barely at all. And they said that conditioning was an issue for him. They said that he was sent down to the alternative site because conditioning was an issue. Are they ready to just, is he fully conditioned? Are they ready to just let him rip? I don't know. We got to see. Anyway, guys, this was fun. A little one of the longer shows. We had a big slate to break down today, but I appreciate you guys hanging out with me, contributing in the chat, all that good stuff. We're going to get up out of here. My Core Plays article will be out a little bit later. We got NBA content coming later at WiseTake.com. Baseball projections and all that are up. They'll be updated throughout the day as lineups come in and out. For myself, the entire WiseTake Nation, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, share. It's appreciated. As always, good luck.
Yeah.